Yo, Kpaceguy here. What's going on YouTube? And welcome back to the channel. And today I want to talk about the 3-foot rule. First, I want to go and explain what the 3-foot rule is, and then I want to talk about how it pertains to you in your home theater or your music system. So let's go ahead and get started. First and foremost, what is the 3-foot rule? Well, as you saw by the thumbnail, a 3-foot rule is the distance between the back of a speaker and the wall. A lot of speakers nowadays have what we call a port on the back, or a hole on the back that allows air to pass through, specifically bass notes or mid-range frequencies. When you put that port against the wall, you're going to add extra emphasis to whatever notes are coming out of that bass port, and that could negatively impact your sound. What the 3-foot rule allows you to do is take the speaker and pull it off the wall at least 3 feet so that the wall doesn't have much of a play in the sound. Now, this could impact your sound both negatively and positively. Negatively because it could muddy your sound. It could make it sound very bloated. It could add coloration in a negative way. It could also help it positively if you have maybe a smaller bookshelf speaker with not a lot of bass, or even a subwoofer that doesn't dig very low, or maybe an 8-inch that needs a little bit of help. If you put it against the wall, or maybe tuck it into a corner, you might positively reinforce some of the bass that was otherwise hard to achieve with it pulled away from the wall a little bit. Typically, especially in a music 2-channel system, you want to pull your speaker a little bit off the wall so that the wall doesn't have any kind of play in the system and how it sounds. So you might be wondering, hey Kpaceguy, I have some speakers against the wall, but they don't have any ports on the back. Should I still pull them off the wall? Well, some will say maybe it's not necessary. Some will say, yeah, you should. Another reason why you pull your speakers off the wall is not only to get that port away from the wall, but when you pull a speaker into the room has less grab on how your speakers are going to sound. You want your speakers to sound exactly how they were engineered to sound. You don't want to have to add any extra color. When you pull your speaker into the room, you get the most neutral response that you possibly can from the speaker. Now, if you don't have a port on the back, it may not make any difference. Really, the big point of pulling a speaker off the wall is to keep from negatively impacting the sound, especially in the mid-range and the low-range frequencies. So if you have a port on the back, maybe 1, maybe 2, you want to pull your speaker into the room at least 3 feet so that you get a more neutral, more flat sound so that you don't add any coloration to a song or to a movie that otherwise wasn't there. Now, if you don't have a port, it may not matter too much, but it's definitely worth trying out and playing around with so that maybe you can figure out how to make your sound the best. Now, I have my speaker here pulled off a little less than 3 feet. And you may be saying, I have a small room, Kpaceguy. I just don't have the space to pull my speaker off. Well, there's a few things that you can do. One, pull it off as much as you can. That's most comfortable. In my room, I don't have a lot of space to pull my speakers forward. My room from front to back is not very deep. So these are really in the way if I pull them out. But what can I do? Well, luckily for me, I have ports that are underneath my speakers, not on the back. But in case you're somebody who has them on the back, you may be able to plug those ports. Check the link down below in the description where I made a video talking about port plugs. Port plugs are something you can stick inside the port to block the air. So if you can't bring them into the room, then maybe you can block that port, and so you don't have any reinforced bass coming out of the speaker. It's just whatever these can provide you. So those are options that you can have if you can't pull your speakers into the room. So what happens if you do pull your speakers to the room? What will happen to your sound? You're going to experience a more flatter sound. You may lose a little bit of bass, but usually it's a healthy impact. Usually when you put a speaker against the wall, like we said, it adds muddiness to it, maybe a muffled sound. If you pull them off the wall, it kind of tames those mid-range frequencies. So if you're watching a movie or you're listening to music and you feel like your bass is really muddy, even if it's a speaker, a subwoofer, pull it away from a corner, pull it away from the wall, and you may experience yourself getting a more flatter response that should sound more tasteful. Now, my Canton Vento A96.2s have a port, but they're underneath the speaker. So I actually don't have any room boundary gain issues at all. I don't have to really pull them off the wall necessarily to get them to sound flat. But one speaker that I do have a port on the back is the center channel. And I've been doing some experimenting for the past couple of weeks. I have some sound acoustic panels in the room that kind of tame the higher frequencies and maybe a little bit of the echo, but they don't really target the lower frequencies or the mid-range bass. So what I've done is I listened to my system and music and movie applications with the center channel against the wall, and then I instantly switched it and moved it a little bit into the room away from the wall. And the results were obvious. When I had my center channel against the wall, this is more apparent in a movie listening with dialogue. When I had the center channel pushed to where it is now against the wall, I had a lot more muddiness, more muffledness. It just didn't sound right. When I started to move it into the room a little bit, a lot of that muddiness started to go away. And why? That's because the two ports that are on the back are pushed up against the wall, that you're pretty much reinforcing that bass, and it's just going within the room, just reaching your ears. It sounds muddy, it sounds muffled, it sounds bad, especially with male voices. It just sounded like, right? And that's not what we want to hear, especially not in your music. You may be able to get away with it with movies, but if you're a keen listener, it's going to bother you. When I pulled my center channel off the wall a little bit, it started to get a more flatter response towards those middle frequencies, maybe 600 hertz and down. It started to become a little more tame. It was really, really obvious with movies and watching regular TV and YouTube videos and such. It really became obvious that pulling it away from the wall was the best answer for me. So what about these subwoofers? How does that affect the sound? I think this is arguably one of the most important things to get correct, is subwoofer placement. Because you can take a really good subwoofer and put it in the wrong spot, and it'll be the worst subwoofer that you've ever heard. So for me, again, I have a really small room, but I have two big PB4000 subwoofers, and a lot of people in the comment section say, oh my gosh, why do you have two? Why do you have two? First and foremost, no room is too small for dual subs. My room may be too small for big PB4000s, but they're not too small for dual subs. Dual subs will give you a more cohesive, even sound across multiple listening areas. So that's why I have two, because I wanted to go dual. But the most important thing to get right with a subwoofer is the placement. So I have a subwoofer that's not really reinforced by anything. Luckily, my ports are down at the bottom, nothing on the back, but still this subwoofer is not tucked into a corner or up against the wall. It's really in an open space. And what that has done to my sound was created a much more flat, even response. Like we talked about just a second ago with the speakers and the center channel, when you start to tuck your speakers into a corner or up against the wall, you're going to reinforce bass in most likely a negative light. When you pull them away from a wall or pull them into the room, you start to get a more cohesive, flatter, more accurate, tighter response that most people will find pleasing. Now, I've also done experiments with this as well. This right here is the best placement for this subwoofer that I found in my room. Away from a wall, not really reinforced by anything, pull it out into a room with an open hallway. It sounds very flat. But let me show you where my other subwoofer is at. My other subwoofer is down here in a corner, and it's reinforced by this wall here and this wall here. So it's almost in another box. So this speaker sounds a little bit different than the one that's over there that's open, because it's being reinforced by the wall just ever so slightly. Now again, I do have my ports in the front, so it's not as bad as a usual subwoofer would be with the ports in the back, but it's not necessarily ideal. So guys, if you have subwoofers tucked into a corner, maybe it's worth listening to them, maybe pulled away from the wall a little bit. Maybe I can pull this forward. Maybe I can move it over to the left a little bit so it's only getting boundary gain from one wall, not two. There's a lot of small things you can do to make your sound better. Even just moving this ever so slightly could potentially make a big change in my sound. All right, guys, that's going to do it for the 3-foot rule. Go ahead and leave me a comment down below and let me know, do you guys, and don't lie to me either, do not lie to me, did you guys have your speakers pulled off 3 feet from the wall? If you do, leave me a comment and let me know how has that experience been for you. And if you don't have your speakers 3 feet off the wall, tell me why you haven't tried it yet. It's definitely worth giving it a try, guys. Even in my system, I'm constantly changing things around, moving things to try to figure out how can I get the best out of what I have. And putting my speakers a little more into the room has definitely helped my sound. So guys, leave me a comment down below. Let me know, have you tried the 3-foot rule? Are your speakers pulled away from the wall? If they are, how has that been? And if they aren't, Why haven't you tried it yet? Leave me that comment down below. Let me know your experience, and we will see you guys in the next video. Kpaceguy out. Peace.